Hello my friends, this is the gluing up of the deck of the Compass Star Kayak.
This is a pull noodle that I cut in half and then I slit down the whole length, and what I'm going to do is slip this over my 2x4 and lift the unit up. Steel beam's heavy. Okay, the form is completely loose, and what I have to do now is secure all the ribs again and lock it in tight. And the reason you have to take this off is when you glue the deck up, you'd have trouble removing the kayak off of the forms. This way the bottom of the kayak will break loose. So what I'm going to do is right at the one rib, while I tighten those forms back up, I want to secure both ends very tight. That this will be held while I'm locking those together. I'll do the same on the other end now. Now after the forms are locked in position again, I want to make sure that the outer portion of the hull where it mates with the deck, that it's touching up against the individual forms. So what I'm doing is pulling this in. It doesn't take a lot of force to hold this. I'm pulling it together, and then I'm going to hot glue just the top seam back, and that'll hold it. And then once that's on there and the glue starts forming up to the top of the deck, everything will hold tight, and I'll be able to break one joint at each rib to remove the deck. And I may only need one more of those bands. The ones on the end, they're up against the forms. This center section, midsection, that's spread slightly, so that one's going to be pulled in. Here's the starter strip for the deck, and you can see here how it has to bend, and it also leans towards the center. So this flat edge here has to be planed, and also this is going to go to a taper. So I'm going to cut the lower edge. That means the wood will flex less by trimming the bottom off. And I'm going to take it to about this rib, and I'll do the other side the same way. And I'll put a reference line on from here to the top. I'm holding the plane. This is 90. I'm going to tilt it slightly this way. So I'm taking more off of the inside edge. And this is going to have to go back into here where it starts its turn. But we'll get this side first. I won't be taking it to a sharp point. I'm going to leave a little bit of mass on the end here. It flexes too much. And since this has the bead edge, most of that's going to be inside the next strip. We're going to check this all the way down like that. I'm going to ignore this as I'm pushing it down so that I can continue pushing this to make it match. And the point here, I'm trying to blend it in so it has a smooth transition with that end. This will be hot glued on the inside. This seam is not glued, so that's the parting line. That's where the two halves will separate. We take the form out, and then we glue the two halves back together. Some places, you see right here, these two need to be aligned. So I'm going to move this into position with the clamp. There. Once you get it held, now what I'm going to do here is put a couple gobs of hot glue and run this across that seam. And you can do this on the inside, but I won't do this here because I have to separate the hull, and I can knock these off from the exterior much easier than trying to get into the hull and release them. And this near the bow and stern you can't reach anyway, so they need to go on the outside here. This is what I call coaxing wood to go where you want it. You can see all the nudging and moving and shifting and clamping. But it is being glued in that position. It'll dry that way. Working the deck, you can see here I'm using clamping pressure, and then I'm hot gluing strips that will span that clamp, and then I can remove the clamp and continue working once the hot glue cures. And you can see here, as I'm filling in, I've done the same thing. Used some clamping pressure and hot glued these little spreaders or spanning, and it's also holding, like in this one right here, it's holding them parallel with each other. When you're getting near this top end, you can't get inside to push up or support. On the inside, you can't see here, but to keep this point from dropping down inside, I hot glued a stick
spanning this area, and that's holding the tip up until it dries. And the hot glue, you can just tap on these pieces of wood and it'll break its bond. Doing an inlay over an arched or rounded surface, you're going to have to use thicker wood in order to be able to make the curve. And what you do after everything is set up to where your glue is hardened and you're ready to start sanding, you're going to take this down and fair it in with the surface of the deck. So you can see here I had, instead of, this is 1/4 inch here, and then moving up into here, I glued 1/2 inch thick pieces of wood, and these are just fill-in pieces on the trim because they weren't 1/2 inch, they were 1/4 inch. When gluing slats up to an inlay and you have a gap or a distance that you have to travel, you have to make sure that these boards are on the same plane so that when they do come across that they will line up. And that's what I'm doing here with these sticks. These are holding the two in the same plane so that when I do come and join, they will match perfectly. And what I also did is put some hot glue, and that will allow me to remove the clamping. I need to do the same over on this side. To help the hot glue release from the wood, I soak the wood with alcohol, and there's less chance of the hot glue tearing the wood fibers. Here I'm cutting out a slot for one of the inlays, and I have the strips glued on first to keep everything both sides in line, and I have the back portion of this right in here supported with blocking and hot glue so that this doesn't flex and move down. Okay, now that's out, I need to cut in this direction. Here's an inlay that I'm putting in the front of the kayak, and you can see this center section here matches the thickness of the hull. It's a 1/4 inch, but as it's coming down the side, it thickens, and that's because of the arch that's in there. So I had to double this, so it's a 1/2 inch thick down in this area, and this is going to be faired in. The only thing that I don't like, I didn't have the exotic woods thick enough to make this one piece, so it's laminated. So there will be maybe a ghost image of a glue line in there. It might not be noticeable. The only way to tell is when we get the deck all glued up and we fair it, and then we see where that line is going to be and how much is going to be in there. I'm hoping it's just down in the tip area. This is the last of the glue up area on the deck, and there's an area right in here where it's a transition between where the combing is going to rise, where your legs go in, and to the back where it drops down. So there's a lot of twisting in this area. So that's why you see the strapping and the clamping to make that transition. Once the glue sets up, it'll hold that position, and then I can cut out the coaming or the cockpit area. And you can see a lot of clamping to coax it to where it needs to go. Here I have completed the last of the glue up on the deck. You can see here the inlay in the front, and because it went over that curved area, you could see how it's raised here at the tip. The rest is flush. Then the transition between the area where your legs go in, which is higher, and then to the back, which is lower. The transition has a lot of twisting, so there's a lot of clamping in that area, and that's the very last of the strips that went in. And then as we move to the back, you can see the inlay here. I already took the hand plane and got it down pretty close. This was about a 3/4 inch thick, 1/2 inch to 3/4 on this end. So it blended in real nice. And the only other thing that I'll do, but this is after it's already sanded, is I'm going to put a small hatch right in this area. The hatches will be cut in after all of the sanding is done, but I'm going to add a small hatch and a double bulkhead and make this hatch a day compartment for where I can store my food and water when I'm out paddling. And it'll have easy access. I'll put it on the right side since I'm right-handed, make it easier access for me. Well, that's about it. Next step is sanding the deck. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.